be, what would you do, superintendent slash business manager? Or is your suggestion that you combine the Blue Diamonds and add whatever additional things they're doing to the actual body that's fulfilling the role?
Well, I think that's a great suggestion. It would reflect, as we do in the budget, we have 2.5 positions, and so the slash would be appropriate.
The problem that I have with that is the slash at the top the business manager doesn't supervise the assistant super and the SPED director. The business manager's role is to deal with the people in the green boxes underneath them. So now the implication is that the superintendent slash business manager is also dealing with all these other green boxes, that technically that piece, that business manager piece of the role of Dr. Colley doesn't touch these other people. The same thing with the assistant superintendent and with the SPED director. You would only have the early childhood coordinator under her if you got rid of the diamonds, and then the out-of-district coordinator would be SPED director slash out-of-district slash. It would just be, in my opinion, against what Eric's trying to argue for, which is
Well, I have a point that's going to sum it all up in a second.
clear direction of where these roles and responsibilities lie. Usually you have an out-of-district coordinator that maybe the SPED chair would do, but the SPED director doesn't normally take on 8 roles. And the fact that we, because we're small and because we're very tight in our administrative budgets, have eliminated bodies, doesn't mean that the responsibilities of doing what that body used to, like the director of guidance, there used to be a body, and that person used to do X, Y, and Z. That person no longer exists. So somebody had to take up what that person did, and it wasn't one person. They had to spread it over people. If you eliminate that box, where do you reflect that there's a director of guidance or that there's a director of guidance responsibility? So do you put it under Cheryl? She's principal director of guidance, assistant principal director of guidance. That'll look like we have 18 directors of guidance. I think that'll be more confusing, in my opinion.
If you need to respond, I have no
Oh,
problem.
yeah, just where it was focused on my suggestion, again, I stand by the acceptable organizational chart rules, and that is 1 person per box. If we start listing these odd shapes and alternative roles, and in fact, the superintendent slash business manager does supervise the assistant superintendent. That happens to be his title. It's 1 person. His list of responsibilities, you go to that descriptive page of what that position does. I don't think we're going into a much expanded discussion when we. No, I'm not getting confused. I'm talking about the correct way to do an organizational chart. 1 block per person, and please let's stop talking about that we're such an unusual system. Let's do a comparative analysis of like-size systems, and let's see how many multitasking people are on board. That's the route to efficiency, and that's what happens. So they become less blocks and more shared responsibilities. But I think it clearly is explained who does what if we eliminate the blue. And the other confusion I have is using the frame of what we're replacing. We have an educational technology director position, which we didn't have 3 years ago, so this predates that. Didn't we have an assistant? We had a director of curriculum, and I don't see the director of curriculum on this former chart. So I understand positions change, and when they're eliminated, they're removed off the organizational chart and replaced with a new title.
I honestly don't know when this old chart was created. Obviously, over the years, the district has added positions and taken away positions.
Right, so if this had a date, which is, the other thing I had asked for, that we put some reference dates. The last time this was on the agenda and being discussed, we talked about missing dates. There's still no dates. The Educational Technology Director was previously filled by Dr. Condon, who then, I believe, and then became the Director of Curriculum. I think it was a title change, I have to assume. If she was hired as the Educational Technology Director and became the Assistant Superintendent, or?
No, she was curriculum all the way through, from the moment she was hired.
Eric, go ahead.
I can finish this up with all I have to say. The purpose of an organizational chart is going to help us come January, February, when we start putting together a budget. The more detail we have in it, the more detail we can get when we're trying to figure out where we need to streamline, where we need bodies or anything like that. And you're both correct. Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Alfano, you're both correct. But that's the purpose of this exercise that we're doing, so that we can understand what our organization looks like, and if we're presented with budgetary constraints again, we can easily see our structure of our organization and identify the best possible direction to take it. Every organization has an organizational chart. That's why we need one. This is a good start. We need to put it into the policy, but we need to work on it.
May I make just an observation? I don't know if it's a suggestion. I mean, obviously, if what you want is a reflection of what is, the blues would come off the page. If you want a reflection of what has been, some of the blues would go, some of the blues would stay, some additional blues would be put in, because we've had different names in the past. My biggest concern is when we do have that discussion of budgeting, and budget usually hinges on staffing, that people fail to look back in history and see that at one point in time there were other people there that no longer are there, or the position was taken out of the pot. Yet over the years what I've heard is we have too many people doing this kind of job, so it's more like, do we want to reflect the fact that we've lost positions so that perhaps eventually you can make a case that the position disappeared but the work did not? Or do you just want to reflect, this is what we have and this is our starting point?
That's transparency. We need to show that, because everyone still says you're top-heavy in administration, because we have so many blue diamonds here. If we show what is our true organizational chart of boots on the ground, we're transparent and say, this is what we work with. It's not all these little blue diamonds and this and that, this person's doing. What are we working with in this district? Who does what? I don't care about names. What's the position? Who do they report to? Up and down the chain of command. That's what we need.
I think those blue diamonds should get incorporated into the squares. Simplify the whole chart. And I don't know, I think that's a hybrid, to use Mike's word, of what we have here. So maybe we need to tweak it a little bit more.
I make a motion to accept this chart as is, as a working document, and put it on for future meetings to either through subcommittee and take those suggestions and keep developing this, because it's always, first of all, an organizational chart is always a work in progress. It's always fluid.
We don't need a motion to
No, we're not gonna.
direct Dr. Colley to.
We can just use it. I mean, ultimately, if the school committee wants it in the policy manual, we can make any changes and put whatever you want in the policy manual, because it is your policy manual. So I'm just saying there's two different ways to look at it. Like you said, you could go with what is, you could go with the hybrid of what is and what it's become because you added pieces to people, or you can go with what is and what has been.
Get a second?
I don't know how to do it.
Want to second his motion? No seconds?
I mean, isn't the point we're trying to make is it's a good start, but it
Yes.
needs to be worked on.
Yes.
So, Dr. Colley, I think you've heard all of our opinions.
I think it's
Come back
important
with
to let
another.
everyone know what we have.
Right, and
In the
that's-
future, if there's a need for another box, then
So
we make that case, we make that argument, and we
Right, so
maybe
that-
hire that person in the future. But to show an organizational chart that says, hey, look, we're really not as big as everyone thinks we are. Look what we should have. Let's show what we have. And it's always going to change. And
My only problem with that is,
Excuse me.
then you argue against your ability to say, we really need a business manager, because, well, the superintendent's been doing that and this and that, so why do we need a business manager? The next superintendent, 10 years down the line or whenever, may not have the ability to do the business management because they don't have the experience and training. Maybe they're much more curriculum-oriented.
But do we show, football field director, even though we don't, because
I don't know.
we have.
It's a work,
I mean, I
in my
think-
mind, it's a work in progress, and maybe it just needs a little bit more work.
Go ahead, Mike.
In light of the fact that this has been a work in progress now for over 2 years, when we eliminated the current chart, I'm ready to make a motion. My motion is to, first of all, I have to underscore the importance of a date. I mentioned this in our last discussion of an organizational chart. An organizational chart is a reflection of an organization on a particular date, period. It has nothing to do with work in progress. It has, yes, it then changes perhaps the next day if we make a policy change. I'm pleased with the green boxes, and therefore my motion is to date page 1 of the community schools organizational chart, everything that's in green, and date it today. Look forward to future amendments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I don't think you can remove all the blue diamonds, personally. I think that's just not reflective of what really is happening in our district. I think it would misinform people and lead people to think something that is actually factually not what is occurring.
Yeah, I mean, that is a fear that we somehow send a message that, hey, everything's fine. Look, here's our organizational chart. There's a person, and again, it's not our job or the superintendent's job to sell to the community that, we should have this person. I mean, that's our case to make, and then to get those funds and hire that person if we need to do that. But I mean, I think the organizational chart shouldn't be a political statement. It should just be an organizational chart. And this is
Chair.
Mr. Larry.
Absolutely. Not a political statement. It shows the organization. If we have those positions, you don't make them, if those are actual positions, no names on them, then you have the position with no one assigned to that. That shows your true structure of your organization. You may have, let's use baseball terms. You get your baseball field, you're doing your draft day, and you have nobody plugged into center field. It's still a center fielder, but you have nobody plugged into it. We show our organization the way it is. You don't put any names to it. I don't care if someone's doing .2 of it. If it's not filled, it's not filled. Then if we need to show the town, hey, we're in need, they see it. But right now they look at this and say, we have 45 people in the